Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Hello, Mavericks and new viewers from around the world. Great to have everybody here. The King Charles III, delivered his speech from the throne in Canada today and ignored Donald Trump. What a breath of fresh air. I'll tell you why later in the newscast. Well, it'll be our lead story tonight when we come back after these headlines. And Donald Trump, just couldn't get away from him. He had to inject himself into the daily news cycle, didn't he? Yes, he did. He has put a price tag on the Golden Dome for Canada. I'll tell you what it is. Also, what else do we have? The ostrich story. Dr. Oz. We have an update on that and more information that you just won't find anywhere else. So stay with me because we have Ostrich Gate, we have Donald Trump, the Golden Dome, and King Charles and the throne speech coming up right after this.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News. Defending free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, King Charles delivered the speech from the throne today to open Parliament, and he did not mention Donald Trump's name even one time, but it was pretty clear Trump's influence at reshaping geopolitics and the relationship between Canada and the United States was really paramount throughout the speech. Just never said his name, which got my attention. It was conspicuous through its absence. Really, overall, the speech today, I would say, designed to strike a positive chord at a time when the country is facing unprecedented challenges, acknowledged by the king today. And no mistake, no accident, I don't think, that the timing on this is such that it's really designed to send a message directly to the White House that Canada remains a sovereign nation state, and that it is, as the king said today, truly free. I think largely people do not understand the role of the monarch in Canada today, and there is a lot of misdirection, misinformation, downright straight up propaganda in that regard. I don't know how far today's throne speech and the visit to Canada by the king will go. I don't know how far it will go to to counteract or act as a counterweight to all of that anti-monarch talk, which throughout my lifetime has always been present, but it's certainly reached a fever pitch right now. At the same time, for some people, I would say there's an equal rise in true Canadian patriotism and pride in the country, uh, a yearning to learn more about our history, our past, in the face of this 51st state threat from Donald Trump and the MAGA team in the United States. Here's let's go straight to some of the King's speech. I'll share it with you here tonight. A historic day for Canada, for those who love the country and want it to stay together, a significant day, and for those who maybe not so fond of the country anymore and want to break it apart and see it separate for whatever reason. Today also a very significant day, having the King come to speak, triggering some, and for others generating heart-bursting pride.
This land acknowledgement is a recognition of shared history as a nation,
acknowledging First Nations.
While continuing to deepen my own understanding, it is my great hope that in each of your communities and collectively as a country, a path is found toward truth and reconciliation in both word and deed. This is my 20th visit to Canada, spread over the course of more than half a century, and my first as sovereign. As I've said before, every time I come to Canada, a little more of Canada seeps into my bloodstream, and from there, straight to my heart. I've always had the greatest admiration for Canada's unique identity, which is recognized across the world for bravery and sacrifice in defense of national values and for the diversity and kindness of Canadians. To the First Nations, Inuit and Métis peoples, you have welcomed my family and myself to your traditional lands with great warmth and hospitality, for which I am humbly grateful.
I'm going to pause it there for a moment. These words directed to First Nations, extremely important, especially right now, because just as was the case in 1812, when the United States was seeking expansion, and it resulted in that war in 1812, I believe the monarch is today reaching out again to First Nations to seek a strengthening of the alliance, the partnership, the relationship there to reforge that bond in the face of this threat from Donald Trump and the 51st staters. It is that relationship, that link between the new Canadians coming at that time in 1812 and First Nations that still continues today, that I think the King and the government seek to strengthen in order to create a stronger, shall we say, a stronger front to this existential threat coming from the United States today.
We mark the 80th anniversary of VE Day and VJ Day on Juno Beach, at Dieppe, on the Somme, at Beaumont-Hamel, at Ypres, and on Vimy Ridge.
And I'll pause it there. This also is important because what the King is doing here is he is reminding all Canadians, First Nations included, that we share a very rich history. He's reminding us that those who came before us, so many, fought, bled, and even died for what we have today, fighting alongside our allies. And today, this speech confirmed that Canada will be joining the Rearm Europe movement and reasserting our alliances with our European allies, as the United States under Trump is reshaping our relationship with the United States.
Those places and many others forever etched into our memories. Canadians fought and died alongside our closest allies. Aujourd'hui,
today, I see representatives from every part of Canada, from St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador, to Victoria, British Columbia, and Arviat in Nunavut. I see the guardians of the fundamental rights and freedoms guaranteed in the Canadian Charter. And as King, I thank you for your service to your fellow Canadians across the length and breadth of this vast and great nation.
You speak for your communities, representing an incredible richness of cultures, languages, and perspectives. We owe it to this generation and those who succeed us to think and act for the greater good of all. While the world faces unprecedented challenges, generating uncertainties across the continents with regards to peace and stability, economics and climate change, your communities have the skills and determination to bring a wealth of solutions. En encourageant la collaboration,
by fostering collaboration and engaging in respectful, constructive debates,
it has been nearly 70 years since the Sovereign first opened Parliament. In the time since, Canada has dramatically changed, repatriating its constitution, achieving full independence, and witnessing immense growth. Canada has embraced its British, French, and Indigenous roots and become a bold, ambitious, innovative country that is bilingual, truly multicultural, and committed to reconciliation. The Crown has for so long been a symbol of unity for Canada. It also represents stability and continuity from the past to the present. As it should, it stands proudly as a symbol of Canada today in all her richness and dynamism. When my dear late mother...
And that is what the message here is as well, is that the Crown, the King, England, Britain, the UK is standing with Canada at this time. That is clearly the message here, that he, as the monarch, therefore Britain is solidly behind Canada in these rapidly changing and challenging times.
Queen Elizabeth II opened a new Canadian Parliament in 1957. The Second World War remained a fresh, painful memory. The Cold War was intensifying. Freedom and democracy were under threat. Canada was emerging as a growing economic power and a force for peace in the world. In the decades since, history has been punctuated by epoch-making events: the Vietnam War, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the start of the War on Terror. Today, Canada faces another critical moment. Democracy, pluralism, the rule of law, self-determination, and freedom are values which Canadians hold dear, and ones which the government is determined to protect. The system of open global trade that, while not perfect, has helped to deliver prosperity for Canadians for decades, is changing. Canada's relationships with partners are also changing.
We must be clear-eyed. The world is more dangerous and uncertain place than at any point since the Second World War. Canada is facing challenges that are unprecedented in our lifetimes.
Many Canadians are feeling anxious and worried about the drastically changing world around them. Fundamental change is always unsettling. Yet this moment is also an incredible opportunity, an opportunity for renewal, an opportunity to think big and to act bigger, an opportunity for Canada to embark on the largest transformation of its economy since the Second World War. A confident Canada, which has welcomed new Canadians, including from some of the most tragic global conflict zones, can seize this opportunity by recognizing that all Canadians can give themselves far more than any foreign power on any continent can ever take away. And that by staying true to Canadian values, Canada can build new alliances and a new economy that serves all Canadians. The Prime Minister and the President of the United States, for example, have begun defining a new economic and security relationship between Canada and the United States, rooted in mutual respect and founded on common interests, to deliver transformational benefits for both sovereign nations. Simultanément,
in parallel, the government is working to strengthen its relationships with reliable trading partners and allies around the world, recognizing that Canada has what the world needs and the values the world respects.
Times are changing.
Canada is ready to build a coalition of like-minded countries that share its values, that believe in international cooperation and the free and open exchange of goods, services, and ideas. In this new, fast-evolving world, Canada is ready to lead. This will be demonstrated in June, when Canada convenes the G7 summit.
the government is guided by its conviction that the economy is only truly strong when it serves everyone. Many Canadians are struggling to get ahead. The government is responding, reducing middle-class taxes and saving two-income families up to $840 a year. It will cut the GST on homes at or under $1 million for first-time home buyers, delivering savings.
And I'll say this. I was out today, gasoline in my town, $1.25 a liter. $1.25. That is a lot less than it was a short time ago under our previous prime minister at regularly $1.69, $1.70. So there's a big change there. I hope that holds. We'll see what happens with the taxation. But what we're about to hear from the king here now is that Canada has a real opportunity here now, not just a challenge, but an opportunity to build an economy and a country that can actually lead the world.
Savings of up to $50,000. And it will lower the GST on homes between $1 million and $1.5 million. Le gouvernement.
The government will protect the programs that are already saving families thousands of dollars every year. These include childcare and pharmacare. In addition to these, the government has recently expanded the Canadian Dental Care Plan to cover about 8 million Canadians, saving the average person more than $800 annually.
The government's overarching goal, its core mission, is to build the strongest economy in the G7. That starts with creating one Canadian economy out of 13. Internal barriers to trade and labour mobility cost Canada as much as $200 billion each year. The government will introduce legislation to remove all remaining federal barriers to internal trade and labour mobility by Canada Day.
Numerous premiers have already taken vital steps to break down provincial and territorial barriers to trade. Together, we will build on that progress to deliver free trade across the nation. This is critical to unlocking Canada's full economic potential, but it's not enough.
To build Canada strong, the government is working closely with provinces, territories, and Indigenous peoples to identify and catalyse projects of national significance. Projects that will connect Canada, that will deepen Canada's ties with the world, and that will create high-paying jobs for generations. Given the pace of change and the scale of opportunities, speed is of the essence. Through the creation of a new major federal project office, the time needed to approve a project will be reduced from 5 years to 2, all while upholding Canada's world-leading environmental standards and its constitutional obligations to Indigenous peoples. The government will also strike cooperation agreements with every interested province and territory within 6 months to realise its goal of one project, one review. When Canadians come together, Canada builds things that last. Éliminer ces obstacles qui freinent.
By removing these barriers that have held back our economy, we will unleash a new era of growth that will ensure we don't just survive ongoing trade wars, but emerge from them stronger than ever. It will enable Canada to become the world's leading energy superpower in both clean and conventional energy, to build an industrial strategy that will make Canada more globally competitive while fighting climate change, to build hundreds of thousands of good careers in the skilled trades, and to build Canada into the world's leading hub for science and innovation.
Critically, the government will undertake a series of measures to help double the rate of home building while creating an entirely new housing industry, using Canadian technology, Canadian skilled workers, and Canadian lumber. The government will introduce measures to deliver affordable homes by creating Build Canada homes. This mission-driven organization will act to accelerate the development of new affordable housing. It will invest in the growth of the prefabricated and modular housing industry, and it will provide significant financing to affordable home builders. The government will make the housing market work better, including by cutting municipal development charges in half for all multi-unit housing. The government will drive supply up to bring housing costs down. To be truly strong, Canada must be secure. To that end, the government will introduce legislation to enhance security at Canada's borders. Law enforcement and intelligence agencies will have new tools to stop the flow of fentanyl and its precursors. The Canada Border Services Agency will be given new powers to examine goods destined for export, to prevent the transport of illegal and stolen products, including cars. Le gouvernement protégera.
And that
The government
was
will
directed
protect
at
Canada's
Trump
sovereignty
for sure.
by rebuilding, rearming, and reinvesting in the Canadian Armed Forces. It will boost Canada's defense industry by joining Rearm Europe to invest in transatlantic security with Canada's European partners. And
There it
it
is.
will invest to strengthen its presence in the north, as this region, which is an integral part of Canada, faces new threats.
Europe's going to spend $1.25 trillion for defense over
Canadians
5 years.
and their sovereign rights from wherever challenges may come at home or abroad. To keep communities safe, the government will hire 1,000 more RCMP personnel. It will change firearms licensing and strengthen enforcement of yellow and red flag laws. Weapons licenses for those convicted of intimate partner violence and those subject to protection orders will be revoked. Through the deployment of scanners, drones, and helicopters, additional personnel, and canine teams, the government will stem the tide of illegal guns and drugs across the border. It will take these steps while protecting the rights of law-abiding gun owners and Indigenous peoples' long-standing hunting traditions. The government will bring a renewed focus on car theft and home invasions by toughening the criminal code to make bail harder to get for repeat offenders charged with committing these crimes, along with human trafficking and drug smuggling. During this time of great change, Canadians are uniting behind what makes Canada unique. La langue française et la culture.
The French language and the Quebec culture are at the heart of the Canadian identity. They define the country that Canadians and I love so much. Canada is a country that respects and celebrates its official languages and Indigenous languages. The government is determined to protect the institutions that bring these cultures and this identity to the world, such as CBC, Radio-Canada. It will protect the people who give us access to fresh, healthy, and quality food, agricultural producers. And it will protect supply management.
Nature is core to
Another message straight to Trump talking about protecting supply management. Also, I'm just glancing at the chat over on Rumble, and a couple of people asking, why is Trudeau there? That is because all former prime ministers were invited today. Jean Chrétien was not there because he suffered some sort of a heart condition, a heart attack, perhaps. I don't know, but he had to go to the hospital for they're calling it a minor heart procedure. That is all that I know tonight at this time about that, but I think he's going to be okay.
Canada's identity. In 2022, Canada convened COP15 in Montreal, which concluded with 196 countries striking a historic agreement to protect 30% of their lands and 30% of waters by 2030. To this end, the government will protect more of Canada's nature than ever before through the creation of new national parks, national urban parks, marine protected areas, and other conservation initiatives. The government will always protect the rights and freedoms that the Charter guarantees for every Canadian. The government will be a reliable partner to Indigenous peoples, upholding its fundamental commitment to advancing reconciliation. Central to this commitment is the creation of long-term wealth and prosperity with Indigenous peoples. For that reason, the government will double the Indigenous Loan Guarantee Program from $5 billion to $10 billion, enabling more Indigenous communities to become owners of major projects. As Canada moves forward with nation-building projects, the government will always be firmly guided by the principle of free, prior, and informed consent. Canada's immigration system has long been a source of pride for Canadians and of dynamism for the economy. The government is dedicated to rebuilding the trust of Canadians in immigration by restoring balance to the system. Le gouvernement instaurera.
The government will cap the total number of temporary foreign workers and international students to less than 5% of Canada's population by 2027. By doing this, the government will attract the best talent in the world to build our economy, while sending a clear message to Canadians working abroad that there is no better time to come home.
Dans toutes ses actions, le gouvernement.
In all its actions, the government will be guided by a new fiscal discipline. Spend less so Canadians can invest more.
Day-to-day government spending, the government's operating budget, has been growing by 9% every year. The government will introduce measures to bring it below 2%. Transfers to provinces, territories, or individuals will be maintained. The government will balance its operating budget over the next 3 years by cutting waste, capping the public service, ending duplication, and deploying technology to improve public sector productivity. In parallel, the government will take a series of measures to catalyse new investment, to create better jobs and higher incomes for Canadians. The scale of the government's initiative will match the challenges of our times and the ambitions of Canadians. Honourable Senators, members of the House of Commons, when my dear late mother addressed your predecessors 7 decades ago, she said that in that age and against the backdrop of international affairs, no nation could live unto itself. It is a source of great pride that in the following decades, Canada has continued to set an example to the world in her conduct and values as a force for good. À vous.
I wish to express to you and to the people of Canada my heartfelt gratitude, and that of my wife, for the warmth of the welcome which we have received.
And reminds us the true north is indeed strong and free. Members of the House of Commons, you will be asked to appropriate the funds to carry out the services and expenditures authorised by Parliament. May you honour the profound trust bestowed upon you by Canadians. And may God bless and guide you in all your duties.
There you have it. And I have to say, what a contrast from that to what we're getting from the White House right now. Everybody's ripping us off. Tariffs on everybody. Tariffs on you. Tariffs on you. 50% tariffs on you. Reduced to 25. Tomorrow 70. Hey, Pete, what's going on over there with our defense? We're restoring the warrior ethos, sir. We're all about peace. Yeah. Like, oh, my God. Not one mention of Donald Trump in today's throne speech, but many references to the issues facing the country because, in large part, of what's coming from the White House right now. Stay with me. More ahead after this.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay. So again, yeah, the King Charles, fulfilling his symbolic role as the sovereign for Canada, but Canada a sovereign nation state as acknowledged by the King, saying that Canada today is the true north, strong and free. A very positive message, and delivered in that very calm, even tone that we've come to expect from the King. Uh, just a stark contrast to what you get out of the White House every day. And I can't get away from Donald Trump. He just he just has to inject himself into the daily news cycle every single day. It is, I would say, it is a show. You think you're watching a movie? People say we're watching a movie. Some people say we're watching a movie. Yeah, we are. Because why? Donald Trump has filled his administration with celebrities, TV hosts, news commentators, TV judges, TV doctors. It's a show. Who's Pete Hegseth? He was a Fox News celebrity. Who's Judge Janine Pirro? Fox News celebrity. Dan Bongino. RFK Jr. is a celebrity unto himself. All of these people, it's just a Dr. Oz. We're going to talk about Dr. Oz, part of the administration. It is like watching a show. He's turned it into a show. And today he had to try, in at least some way, to upstage the King. He at least had to get a word in edgewise, and he did over on Truth Social. Here it is. And it's related to defense and the 51st state, of course, as Canada is asserting its sovereignty and its rich history dating back long before the creation of the United States, dating back to a time, to times with the United Kingdom and Britain. Here he is. Here's Donald Trump talking about Canada joining the 51st state. I told Canada, which very much wants to be part of our fabulous Golden Dome system, that it will cost $61 billion if they remain a separate but unequal nation, but will cost $0 if they become our cherished 51st state. They are considering the offer. So what was it? 61 billion. I'm not sure where he gets the number. I don't believe any numbers that he puts out anymore because he's all over the map with them. But we'll go with 61 billion tonight just because it's in text on the screen, 61 billion. And I would say this on the other side, where he's saying if we join to become the 51st state and it would be $0, yeah, nothing is free. There would be a much higher cost than the 61 billion if we join the United States and become the 51st state. We'll pay in a whole bunch of different ways. You think you're not going to pay for it if you join the United States? We can't afford 61 billion. If we join the United States, we'll be paying off their debt. If we join the United States, you're still going to get taxed. How do you think they're going to pay for the dome? Tariffs? No, tariffs are not going to do it. Tariffs are a tax on you, on us. They're a tax. And that's how The Golden Dome will be paid for ultimately, one way or another, or through money printing inflation, or by taking it from other countries. And that's what he's going to do. He's going, if you join the United States as the 51st state, even Alberta, you think you're going to not pay, you're being told you're not going to pay federal income tax anymore. And you'll instantly enjoy like a 40% increase in your income? Dream on. If you're not paying it to Ottawa, you're going to be paying it to Washington, or you're going to be paying it to wherever the capital of the new nation of Alberta would be, because you'll have increased expenses for everything from national defense and border security to your completely own healthcare system, and a myriad of other expenses that come with running an actual country. And good luck with a population of 5 million alone. You're more likely just going to get swallowed up, assimilated by the American Borg. And then you'll pay one way or another. And I think you're going to pay a much higher price. We'll all pay a much higher price, because that's what the United States does. They assimilate. We're a mosaic, a cultural mosaic. They're a melting pot. And you join the US and you're going to be assimilated like the board, and resistance will be futile. You've been so warned. So yeah, you will pay $61 billion. Assuming we even take part. And then he posts this about Vladimir Putin. Again, words. This is how Donald Trump engages in diplomacy, negotiations, and even warfare. Is social media. What Vladimir Putin doesn't realize, he says here on Truth Social, is that if it weren't for me, lots of really bad things would have already happened to Russia. And I mean really bad. He's playing with fire. Well, you know the phrase that comes to mind with Donald Trump tonight? It's something, the words right out of his mouth that he used to use quite often. Didn't really hear him say this very often, if at all, during this most recent election cycle. But in the previous election cycle, what did he say? All talk, no action. All talk, no action. He keeps posting stuff like this about Vladimir Putin. He's gone crazy. Something's happened to that guy. I really don't like it. Yeah, well, what are you doing about it? Have you imposed those sanctions? No. All talk, no action. Even the tariffs on Canada and on other countries. It's like blah, 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 a lot of talk, and then rolls them back. Up and down, pulling the levers on the stock market, playing games, all talk, no action, except that it creates an equal and opposite and exaggerated action on the markets, and then some people cash in and make billions of dollars. But in real terms, it's just repeated over and over again. It's all talk and then no real action. And then you get these sort of half-baked, sort of veneer, fake, pseudo, weird trade deal things that aren't really full-blown trade deals. They're just agreements to enter into negotiations to get to an agreement. And that's also what we've seen largely over in Ukraine, too. The war that he said he was going to stop in 24 hours, or maybe even before he came into office. And what have we seen over there? Just a series of empty promises, Putin playing him like a fiddle, day after day, week after week. It's dragged on into months now. And what do we get? More talk about maybe a ceasefire thing, but now Putin's actually ramping it up. The peace talks were never genuine. Certainly not coming from the Russian side. And Trump has just been played like a fiddle. Or he is just capitulating in a way that makes it look like he's trying to do something, but in reality, not really trying. And then asked today too. I noticed there was a clip of him responding to a question about the massive airstrikes on Ukraine over the weekend, the largest strikes on Ukraine since the beginning of the war. And Trump was asked, why don't you give Ukraine air defense? And his response is, well, I need to know that they're serious about settling. And if they're not willing to settle, then we're out of here. What does that even mean? He wants them. That sounds like he'd give them air defense as long as he knows they're willing to surrender. It's Ukraine that has now for almost 2 months been agreeing to an unconditional ceasefire. Unconditional ceasefire, 30-day ceasefire, unconditional. And it hasn't happened. And then we saw this massive strike over the weekend on cities, civilian targets in Ukraine. Now, Ukraine responding in kind. So the war is just escalating. It's not getting better. And now we're seeing intelligence reports and consulting services and military experts coming out and saying that Russia is now gearing up, ramping up. And we've heard the rhetoric anyway. You don't need to really be tuned in too deeply to see that Russia is escalating. They're ramping up, getting ready for a larger conflict with NATO. Whether they will have the capacity to do that, I don't know. But the reports that I'm seeing, the studies from the military experts indicate that they're looking at about a 4-year plan in order to build up their arms, in order to be ready to take NATO on head to head. And that's why you're seeing also this Rearm Europe initiative, both sides arming up. It's very concerning. And you're seeing reference to it tonight, an acknowledgement of Canada's commitment to arming up with Europe, not the United States. And why is that happening? Because Donald Trump has alienated the U.S. from its traditional allies. This is the changing geopolitical landscape, and we are up against something new and unique, something that is certainly much different than anything we've seen before. The political ideology is different, not really being recognized even now by, I would say, 90% of the people out there, that is being used to reshape things. And it's filtering down right into even local politics. Today, I saw Tommy Robinson released from prison and puts on a red hat that says MEGA on it. If you can't see that you've got a global or semi-global political movement underway, tying the conservative / right-wing political movements in all of these countries together, you're not opening your eyes. So Tommy Robinson, of course, was thrown back in jail 7 months ago, serving time related to his work on that documentary. What was it called? Silenced? Yeah, and he was, the actual charge was contempt of court. He came out of prison today with long hair, a beard, and a rosary. And jailed back in October after he admitted to breaches of an injunction made in 2021, which barred him from repeating allegations against a Syrian refugee who successfully sued him for libel. So the movie, again, was called Silenced. It was a movie about that case, and it was pinned to the top of his profile up on Twitter all through his imprisonment. 167 million views is what that documentary accumulated. Now taken down as part of a deal that reduced his 18-month sentence. But as soon as he was released from prison, bam, he's back out and making a public statement. Let me bring it up for you. And here he is.
You've been incarcerated in this horrible place since October. Can you tell me, first of all, how are you? How are you feeling, boss?
I feel good. Unfortunately, in a country that doesn't believe in free speech, being a citizen journalist, this place is an occupational hazard. It's ridiculous. 16 years ago, when I first started speaking out against Islamic rape gangs that were plaguing this country, from that point on, I faced relentless attacks from the British state, wielding lawfare as a weapon in order to silence me. I have never been convicted by a jury. Every one of my convictions have been handed down to me by judges. The lucky thing with this, everyone got to see the film. I have to say a thank you to Elon Musk, because without X, if we didn't have X, everyone would just think I lied. No one would have got any other narrative. Fortunately, I think, 167 million people saw the truth. So that gagging order, these attempts at censorship, to silence, to cancel people, it hasn't worked. You've attempted to lock up the truth, and that truth has been echoed around the entire globe. It couldn't have been any more successful. I knew exactly what I was doing when I released.
So that was a brief clip from his interview today. 167 million. What else has Trump posted on Truth Social? Let's go back to that for a moment. I think he's also posting about Europe and trade. If you want to know what's going on, if you just want to stay up to date on Trump world, just go to Truth Social, scroll through his feed, and you'll get the news in real time. Trump news. I was extremely satisfied, he says here, with the 50% tariff allotment on the European Union, especially since they were slow walking, to put it mildly, our negotiations with them. Remember, I am empowered to set a deal for trade into the United States if we were unable to make a deal or are treated unfairly. I have just lost my spot here. I've just been informed that the EU has called to quickly establish meeting dates. This is a positive event, and I hope they will finally, like my same demand to China, open up the European nations for trade with the United States of America. They will both be very happy and successful if they do. All right. And speaking of Tommy Robinson, I don't know if any of you have taken note, but Derek Reimer, the street pastor, who we've interviewed on this program a few times in Calgary, is back in jail. Of course, Derek Reimer known, I think I have a news story with a headline with a photo for you in case you don't remember who he is. Here we go. Derek Reimer facing a variety of charges related to a variety of arrests related to his protests at drag queen story times or reading for royalty events in Calgary, in particular at the public library there. So he had been going through court. He was sentenced to house arrest and 2 years probation, I believe, went in, was appealing, was asking for a reduced sentence, saying that he had been, for various reasons, not the least of which him saying that he'd been attacked sort of on social media or whatever. Let me just bring this up. Can't remember the exact terms, but that's Derek there. You may recognize him. He has been rearrested now, by the way, which is the point of talking about all this tonight. He wanted a reduced sentence because he claimed he and his wife have been harassed in the wake of all the media attention following his arrests and trials, but the judge rejected that. And the reason he was rearrested, the reason he was convicted was because the court came to the conclusion that he was inciting a mob at one of these events. And there were a number of other charges. Some were rejected, some resulted in conviction. Then he was sentenced. The reason he's been rearrested is because as part of his conditions to stay at home. He also had an exemption, which was to leave home to go to court. And then he went to court, but he showed up early, where he protested on, they say he protested, he says he was praying on the steps of the courthouse. The court says it was a protest. They say that he was breaching his conditions because he was, what's the wording here? I believe they have the exact wording from the court on this. They're basically abusing the exemptions under his restrictions that would allow him to leave home to go to court. Yeah, guilty of breach of charges stemming from his protests. So yeah, for breaching his conditions again, for praying or protesting on the steps of the courthouse prior to going in for his session before the judge. Okay, let's take another quick break. We're going to come back. I'm not sure. We're going to get to the ostrich story again in a moment. And I've got something different than everybody else lined up on the other side.
Greetings, brave mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So some pretty interesting twists and turns to the ostrich story. Protest out in Edgewood, British Columbia. We've been talking about it a fair bit here on the program. I did some additional poking around and digging today in response to some of what I've seen over the last 24 hours. Most interesting is this situation with RFK Jr. first, getting involved and asking for the Canadian government and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency to stop the cull, intervening as the head of HHS in the United States. And then Dr. Oz got involved. Dr. Oz doing an interview on this radio station, WABC, with John Catsimatidis, the billionaire who purchased WABC, the former flagship station of ABC. I believe he bought it for $23 million. And it's a talk station, AM. Here, I'm going to show you a picture. So first he had RFK Jr. on there, and that's how RFK Jr. became involved. Catsimatidis got involved with, he was talking to the protesters out in Edgewood, and actually the farm owner, the daughter of the farm owners, to be precise, Katie. And then because of his connections to Trump, because Catsimatidis is a big Trump supporter, a big donor, he's a billionaire, worth about $4.3 billion himself, has been involved in the Trump campaign as a big supporter. Also now connected to RFK Jr., put him on the radio show first, then pivoted over to Dr. Oz. And here we are here. I'm going to show you this just to show you that this protest out in Edgewood has become highly political. Okay. Here, let's just bring this up for you. Here's Forbes. Campaign donations to Dr. Oz from anonymous apartment complexes leads to Forbes finding its latest billionaire. So here's this Forbes reporting on who was donating to Dr. Oz's campaign. And if you go through and read this information, you'll find that Mr. Castamatidis is indeed a supporter of Dr. Oz. So all these guys connect together, and that's not surprising. They're all in the Trump administration now. And this billionaire owns a chain of grocery stores as well as this radio station. And interestingly, he also owns a big oil refinery in Pennsylvania, which then, if you follow the pipeline that supplies it, it goes straight back into, you guessed it, Alberta. And they have an office in Calgary. That is where the dots connect. And now they're involved in the ostrich fight. Very interesting. But wait, there's more. What am I getting at here? Dr. Oz got involved because he, like RFK Jr., wants these ostriches, which have been involved in COVID research since 2020, to develop antibodies by injecting them with a COVID antigen, as explained by Karen Esperson, the farm owner, here on this program, and then later became infected with the bird flu back in December. And that is what has led to the Canadian Food Inspection Agency ordering the cull, and people upset about that, a court challenge delaying the whole thing, and now protesters out there by the dozens trying to assert their influence and prevent these birds from being killed. Now, Dr. Oz, like RFK Jr., says we got to stop the cull, maybe bring them to the United States. Well, Dr. Oz has offered up his farm. He has a ranch in Florida, 900 acres. It is in Okeechobee, Florida, in Okeechobee County. And the farm is referred to as Emerald Oaks. It consists of 3 parties in unincorporated areas of the county. So there's less regulation there. One property is a residential lot with a home, another is a primary pasture land, and a third contains substantial pristine wilderness, potentially suitable for hunting. The farm is valued between $1 million and $5 million. He has cattle there that's reported to be worth somewhere around $500,000. He doesn't have any ostriches on site. Now, because of this report of Dr. Oz offering to take these ostriches from British Columbia to his farm down in Florida, or his ranch, I thought, well, that seems pretty unusual. And I wonder what would be involved in that. So I started making phone calls today. Now, I called down there and I spoke to some real estate people to see what their reaction would be. I also phoned they don't have a municipality. So I did call the county office, because they oversee things like zoning, bylaws, such as they are in a rural setting like that, regulations, and there are a lot. There's a lot more than you might realize. And I did speak to someone directly in the planning department there, who told me he really didn't know what the implications of bringing these ostriches to that part of Florida would be, but it would be complicated. It's pretty clear that Dr. Oz would be dealing with the Canadian government, which right now it has prohibited the movement of those birds. They're not supposed to leave the farm. They're supposed to be culled. So it's illegal to move them off site. If he were to get an exemption or could convince the Canadian government to release those birds, they would then go to the border where he would be dealing with U.S. Customs and Border Security. And then he would need to convince the U.S. government that these birds were free of infection, not carrying any viruses, and a bunch of other restrictions regarding trade. It's not easy to export ostriches from Canada to the United States. So, and I haven't even been able at this point to determine exactly what would be involved, because ostriches are such a niche animal for agriculture. And we're talking about a lot of ostriches, 398 at last count. Then he would have to transport these things all the way across the United States from the border at British Columbia all the way down to Florida, and get them to the ranch there and cross through all these different states. And given the nature of these particular birds, because they've been exposed to bird flu, I don't know, from state to state to state to state as you travel, I don't even know what interstate restrictions there might be on driving through there with birds that have been, I guess, maybe cleared as from infection if they were all tested and then given a clean bill of health. I don't know. But then also they've got the history of having been injected with the COVID antigen, which we know for a fact actually happened. So there's all of that. And then when they finally get to Florida, you would then be dealing with state law in Florida, because the birds would be staying in Florida. And so you'd be dealing with the state agriculture department and a whole bunch of other regulations there, bringing these birds in. So I was poking around, and then I started asking about real estate values. Would people who live on neighboring farms or ranches be concerned about these birds being brought in to that area? I wasn't able to really get clear answers. The people that I did speak to who were involved in the real estate business down there seemed to think that people were animal lovers and might be open to having these ostriches move into their neighborhood, but that's a lot of ostriches. That being said, a lot of layers to this story, and a lot of approvals would need to fall into place. And it wouldn't be just one like state department or one federal department. You're dealing with agriculture, you're dealing with trade, you're dealing with tariffs now because of Trump. You're dealing with the CDC, National Institutes of Health. You're dealing with HHS and RFK Jr. Now, those guys are in office, so maybe they have enough weight, they carry a big enough stick that they can swing that thing around and get things done, maybe. And you've got a governor down there, and Ron DeSantis, who seems to be pretty, Republican friendly, so maybe he could leverage things and get those birds down there into Florida for Dr. Oz, who is part of the Trump administration as well. But it's complicated. It's not a simple thing. And that's the thing about this story, it's so complex. And yet the people who are down there protesting largely, and a lot of them, the alternative media and even the mainstream media, I'd say almost all the media, has been reporting on this story in ways that make it easy for some people to digest or understand, in ways that really tug at heartstrings and appeal to people on an emotional level. But the the real truth is at the core of the matter, which is much more complex. And so while people are reporting things like Dr. Oz is going to save these ostriches because he's offered to take them to his farm, the truth of the matter is it's much more complicated than that. There are costs involved, regulations. I don't even know if it's realistic at this point for Dr. Oz to be making that offer. And that is why I look at this and I sit back and I say, this is definitely political. It's a bold political statement that positions Dr. Oz as some sort of hero of the ostriches, but does he really mean it? Is it even something that's in the cards? Is it something that's even possible? Or is it just grandstanding? John Catsimatidis, he was on there saying the other day that if the birds are culled, the people of the United States are going to be very upset with Canada. Let me see if I can find the clip of him saying some of this stuff. It's so political. And I've got something special coming up that you're going to want to stay tuned for. Let me see what I can find here for you. I may not be able to get it for you immediately. Well, here's the here's the initial headline that we had from the New York Post. And this is the one that really set everything off. And they're talking about him. So I'll show you that headline. And then we're going to get to the nitty-gritty of this. There he is. Dr. Oz joins flock aiming to rescue Canadian ostriches facing death, offers his 900-acre Florida ranch. Have to get them out, he says. What a nice guy. Oz threw his ranch into the ring after Big Apple supermarket billionaire John Catsimatidis, I may not be pronouncing his last name correctly, forgive me if I'm not getting it quite right, announced he was joining activists trying to save 400 of the flightless birds facing certain death in British Columbia over bird flu fears. And then U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. followed suit. The Canadians should stop putting their heads in the sand, Oz said. We have to get the ostriches out of Canada. Well, that might not be quite as simple as it seems, but it makes for good media, doesn't it? Isn't it that a show? Now you have the TV doc who sells weight loss supplements on television, and now part of running the show as part of the Trump show, now injecting himself into the debate up in Kanakistan, BC, as a champion of the ostriches. But does he really want them? Does he really want them? I was looking stuff up, asking around. Do you know how much it would cost to keep those ostriches every year? You know what the expense would be? It's pretty high. You have about 400 ostriches, 398. It would cost about $425,000 a year. Now, what you're going to do with those ostriches, Dr. Oz? What are you going to do with them? You're going to farm them, sell them for food? They've been used for research. They're lab birds. They've been in an open air biolab. And if they are held, and if, you know, some people are finally catching up with what I've been saying, other media, to at least some degree, they're way behind, most of them. I don't know if anybody, well, no, I don't think anybody else has really provided the comprehensive coverage that we have here, in detail that we have, trying to get you closer to the truth. CBC, I noticed today, radio report, This was, yeah. This was Lauren Victoria, Associated Press, Camille Vernet, and Lauren Victoria Burke from the Associated Press, and Julia Demery. These are the reporters who were involved in putting this report together. And then there's this section in here where an interview is done, and the CBC reporter acknowledges that even if these birds, if these birds are saved, it's interesting to note that, just as I've been saying, what kind of facility have they been running out there? It's an open air biolab. Have they really been following the biosecurity measures? Well, if you save these birds, what are they going to be used for in the future? You can't sell them for food. So they're out of the food chain, at least they're supposed to be. So they're of no value for food, which means if they're going to be productive and generate money or income so that they pay for themselves. Sorry, we lost our feed there again. I don't know what's going on. We're back. If the research is conducted, well, then how can it be conducted? What would be required? It's interesting to note that in this CBC report, this reporter acknowledges what I've been telling people for the last week or so, week and a half, that they'd need to make changes to that farm in order to comply with biosecurity measures. Listen to what he says here. I haven't been lying about this stuff, even though a lot of people have been saying I've been lying or making stuff up. I've checked all the boxes, dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's, provided attribution, and now this reporter also acknowledging what should be just plain and obvious. If you're running a biolab or a research facility, there are protocols that you need to have in place, if not just for security reasons, then to control your experiment so you don't have external factors. Now, he's going to talk about something else here beforehand, and then he'll explain.
Farm cooperates, they are entitled to compensation, $3,000 per bird, or up to $3,000 per bird, although that may not be applicable if this winds up being something that has to be more enforced. There have been RCMP liaison officers who've visited the farm. So far, they've said they haven't been given any orders to make arrests. They just want to make connections, make sure everything's being done safely. But there's no real sense of when or how this cull will take place. I will say, though, today we heard from the union who represents the workers who would be tasked with the job of killing these ostriches, and they're starting to get worried about their safety. Again, this is not. I want to delineate between the farm and some of the people who've attached themselves to supporting this farm. The farm has called very clearly for peacefulness, for people to cooperate. They want people there to show their support, but they are calling for people to follow the rules and the laws. That is not how everybody online is interacting with this. There are posts, and however you want to take that. There are posts suggesting that perhaps somebody else should be culled, threats towards government workers, things like that. And so the union is starting to get worried, they say, about their own safety. They say that they have found they have had some negative interactions with the public when they're out at other jobs. They don't want to say for sure that it's attached to what's going on with what's happening at this farm, but they did raise it as a point of concern. And again, the union, and I should say specifically the union, pointed out that in terms of RFK Juniors and other people's requests that these birds be studied for science, is the conditions for scientific experiment are very different than what the conditions are on this farm. It would be something sort of lab controlled, a controlled environment where you're not getting outside interactions from other birds, but that is not what's going on at this ostrich farm. These birds are out in the wild, they're out in the field, or interacting with ducks and birds who can reintroduce avian flu back into the ostrich herd, or the ostriches, if they are still carrying it, even if they aren't symptomatic, could pass back into the general environment. So it would be a very different thing to have a scientific experiment. It would be a much more controlled environment than what's available on this farm at this point, which is one of the reasons why this call has to move forward as well.
Which is what I've been saying here for the past, week and a half now. It's just obvious. And if research is done at that farm, it would take a massive investment. You'd have to build structures, build a facility that would prevent anything from getting in or out, especially if you're going to continue with the injections of the COVID antigens, I would say. Which also begs the question, what permits were in place prior to this, if any? What licensing was in place prior to all of this happening, if any, with all of that other research going on? And then you've also heard the farm owners talk about how the CFIA came in to question them about what they had been doing, and said they were very interested in their research and they were giving them all of the documents and the information. But then they realized that maybe the CFIA was really just conducting some sort of investigation. Which begs the question, where is this going to go in the future, and what truths are really going to come out of all of this in the end? Because that's all related to COVID. Now you've got the avian flu, and we've also got suggestions that maybe other things might have been going on there. We don't know beyond what we've reported here, but a lot of questions still left unanswered. Maybe we'll get more questions answered in the days ahead. I went and I poked around some more. And like I said, I was poking around down there in Florida today to find out, what do the people there really think about this? What would happen to real estate values? Not really clear. Because I know the neighbors in BC who live next door to the farm in Edgewood, they're not happy. They're very upset with everything that has been going on there. It's a neighbor or an anonymous person, possibly a neighbor, who reported the bird flu outbreak to the CFIA. It appears that it was not the farm owners. And that die-off involving 69 birds died because of the avian flu. That die-off took place over the course of an entire month. Starting probably sometime in December, the family, the owners of the farm, fined $10,000 for, I guess, something related to not reporting the avian flu outbreak. Why wasn't it reported? They said in another interview, I heard them say they just didn't know that that's what it was. So a lot of things going on out there, and it's not as simple as we're being told in some of these media reports, where it's just, I've heard people say a bird got sick, so they want to kill all the birds. No, 69 died. And yeah, they did a PCR test, but they didn't just do a PCR test. They did the PCR test, and they also sent the samples to the lab in Winnipeg to further verify and take the test to the next level. It wasn't just take a swab and put it on a card or something to see if the color changed. This went to a lab, and it was backed up and then further confirmed, coming back positive for the bird flu. So you've got 69 dead birds. You've got a PCR test on site. You've also got lab results coming back from Winnipeg, and people are still trying to cast doubt on it, saying things like they didn't follow chain of custody command. It's just, I'm sorry, but at a certain point, it just becomes undeniable. How many dead birds do you need, and how much testing do you need to know that it's present on the farm? It's pretty clear that it's confirmed. They had bird flu on the farm. Now you've got these other birds. They also indicated that these other birds did exhibit symptoms. At least half of the flock exhibited symptoms, maybe more, and these ones managed to survive. Does that make them unique for research purposes? The court after listening to expert testimony, said no, that wasn't sufficient. Their claims were not sufficient. Claims of herd immunity not proven, and that also was why the court challenge wasn't successful in the end. But that wasn't the primary question. That isn't really why the court challenge ultimately failed. It was because of the single question, which was, does the CFIA have the authority to move ahead with the cull? And the answer to the question in court is yes, they do. And the experts with the CFIA say that this has to go ahead. Now, I've also learned, as many of you have probably already heard, that there is now another application for an appeal that has been filed. And so that may delay things again. And we'll see where that goes. And this again shows that the Canadian system is set up to allow for due process. And if you have a good lawyer and you're willing to take the legal risks and put yourself out there and stand up and not cooperate, you can fight. And they're fighting. And they apparently are launching another legal challenge. All this going on against this backdrop of politics where we now have US politicians, the Trump administration directly intervening and trying to interfere, a foreign government trying to interfere in the affairs of Canada, complicating a volatile political situation out there. And a lot of people on the Canadian side saying, why doesn't RFK Jr. mind his own business? What is Dr. Oz doing up there? Well, this is something that I asked as well. And I started to ask the question, not in Canada, but down in Florida today. I started poking around. Now, I came across an animal rescue sanctuary in the same area, generally, where Dr. Oz's farm is located. So I thought, you know what we should do tonight? Let's phone down to the animal rescue place, and we'll see what the people there have to say about this. Because I went to their website, and I thought, who better to talk to, right? So we're going to call them up in a few minutes and get them to talk about it, because they have ostriches on site. It's called, interestingly and appropriately given the weirdness of the times we're in, the Area 51 Sanctuary. Let's go to their Facebook page first. We'll take a little look here. Here we go. Area 51. Oh my, I won't show you that right away. They burned, yeah, I saw today that their barn burned down, one of their barns. That was last year, though. Area 51 Sanctuary is hiring. So if you want a job, you can go down there. It looks like a great place. They have all kinds of different animals. And from what I gather, this is sort of a privately run thing. And just, it looks like a fantastic place. They have turkeys. They have, what else do they have? Well, that's the fire. But a big barn, eh? My goodness, what a fire that was. That's tragic. And they have chickens and ducks and cows, baby cows, and kangaroos. And they also have monkeys and peacocks. And we're going to call these folks up. Oh, they have a dog. Me too. Oh, yeah. Look, there's cows and calves and turkeys and all kinds of critters. I don't see any orange orangutans. Not yet, anyway. So there's that. Let's take a look at their website. It looks like they do some really great work down there. Area 51. And I'm very interested to know if they have any thoughts on Dr. Oz maybe bringing all these lab birds to Florida to save them. Because I think this place actually, what they do in part is they take in lab animals after the experimentation is finished on them. About us. So here it is. Area 51 is a privately run sanctuary. All of our animals have their own unique story as to how they came to the sanctuary. Sadly, most had lived their lives in horrid conditions. Our mission at Area 51 Sanctuary is to provide the best care possible for all our furry friends. We try to provide the most natural habitats possible. We know everyone wants to enjoy these wonderful animals, and we are happy to say we are open to the public as of December 1st, 2021, by appointment only. This is to ensure that our animals enjoy the rest of their lives in retirement, avoiding large, noisy crowds, which will eliminate any additional stress on the animals. We love each one of our animals and want to provide them with the best life possible for the rest of their lives. And I think that sounds like a fantastic thing. And so, yeah, these guys, they take in the animals for various reasons that have, I think a lot of them have, had lives of abuse, and including some lab animals. So I thought, well, this is right up our alley. So we're going to phone this place up. This isn't Dr. Oz. This isn't related directly to Dr. Oz, but it's just a sidebar interview that I thought would be very interesting. And given that it's in the same general vicinity of Florida, where, I think people are just beginning to hear about the possibility of Dr. Oz bringing these ostriches down there, I thought this might be a cool thing to do tonight. So we'll just make the phone call. Now, all that being said, I've also heard that while Dr. Oz has made the offer, the Universal Ostrich Farm in Edgewood, BC, has declined the offer. So I don't think it's actually going to happen, but I think it's still on the table if it's real. Or maybe it's just political. Maybe it was just, maybe it wasn't, maybe it was a show. Because it'd be pretty complicated, don't you think, to get those birds from that farm after it kind of laid some of that information out. Do you think that's real? Do you think he really does Dr. Oz really want 400 lab ostriches on his farm, his 900-acre farm? It's going to cost him, say, $400,000 a year just to take care of them, and can't really do anything with them unless he's doing research. He could turn his ranch into a biolab. Is he qualified to do that kind of research? These are all questions. But one heck of a show, isn't it? The show will continue on the other side of this. When we come back, we're going to dial that number, and we're going to see if we can get a hold of what's the gentleman's name? Ron Shofowski, I believe his name is. Yeah, we're going to try and get him on the phone. Because I called earlier and I spoke to the receptionist there, got his direct line. So we're going to try and get him on the line on the other side of the
Maverick News. The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Hello?
Hello, is this Ron?
Yes?
Hello, my name is Rick Walker. I'm calling from Maverick News in Canada. And your secretary just directed me over to you. The reason I'm calling is you have the Area 51 Animal Rescue down there.
Okay.
And somewhere near you, Dr. Oz, the TV celebrity, has a farm. And he is offering to bring some ostriches to his farm that are involved in a controversy up here in Canada because they've been used for COVID research and also are exposed to bird flu. The government here wants to cull the ostrich herd or flock because they feel they could possibly be infectious, carrying the disease. And Dr. Oz wants to bring them to his farm somewhere near you in Okeechobee County. So I'm just trying to get a few questions answered, get the reaction from people there. Do you think this would be wise or safe to do, given that you have ostriches and other animals on your facility?
Well, I would recommend you guys test them severely before you do anything like that. We actually, a few years ago, had a triple E outbreak here that is very much like a COVID kind and pretty much killed every one of our emus and ostriches.
Oh, my. I see.
So, plus, ostriches are, I don't know if Dr. Oz or anybody, you have to have a license with FWC, and it's not easy to get a license for ostriches unless you're growing them for farming and meat.
Right.
And they are pretty stickler about that, and they'll verify stuff.
So
we've gone through hell in the handbasket with them.
Yeah, you have ostriches on your site there, right? How many do you have?
Yes, we do. We have 6 or 7.
Uh-huh. And you're an animal rescue place, so how did you come by your ostriches? Somebody had them and then couldn't care for them or something?
No, we've had them for years. You have to have certain amount of hours. You have to have a license. So after 2 years, you pretty much become licensed for them. If you carry them for 2 years and you have hours caring for them. Ostriches are not nice animals. They're very mean.
Yes, I've seen that.
When it comes during the mating season, they almost put me in the hospital. So they're not very calm animals during the mating season. So that's why FWC is tough on people. Does he have ostriches now?
No, I don't believe he does. So he would need to get licensed.
Then tell him, take a pass. He's trying to. First of all, if it's been near any kind of a disease. I wouldn't want them because they're very hard to take care of, and you can't like take them to a vet. There's nobody that would come near an ostrich. They get sick, they die, unless you dart them. And you're not. I mean, our neighborhood, if he's around me, there's no vets that can do anything for an ostrich. We went through it with our emus and ostriches years back, and even the FWC and CDC were involved, and they couldn't do jack shit. They just let everybody die.
Oh my! So you don't really have
It's
any
probably how many does he have that you're trying to displace?
398.
Oh my God! Yeah, you better off sending it to an auction and sell them for meat.
Well, that's the other issue, though. They've been used for COVID experiments over the past 5 years, injected with COVID antigens.
Perfect.
So I don't think that you wouldn't be able to put those into the food supply, would you?
I have no clue. I leave it to our government. They'll do. They put me through the COVID exercise and shot me up with all kinds of medicine. So I wouldn't put it past them anything these days.
Well, it's very.
I really don't want to hear it, and I don't want to be involved. It saddens me that this is still going on.
Yeah.
That we still doing animal testing and everything, because we do get a lot of our animals from the animal testing. We have monkeys and stuff that comes from the prisons of the animal testing world. So, I don't want to be part of it. I don't want to really even hear the story of it. So I would like to be out of it. It'll bother me for a long time knowing that all these animals are getting tortured.
Oh my! How long have you had the sanctuary?
10, 15 years.
Yeah. What other kind of animals do you have there?
You have everything. Non-meat eating animals.
Wow. I guess the other concern would be that if these birds are potentially asymptomatic carriers or anything like that, you would be concerned that they might spread the disease to other farms or even to your stock.
There's not that many people around here with the ostriches. So I know there's one farm that is, I've never been there, but there's a few miles away from us that raises ostriches for meat.
Okay.
But, we don't let anybody in or out of our place. So bringing the stuff, it's unlikely unless they get carried by a bug. And that's how we got the triple E. They got bitten by a bug, and the bug was the carrier.
Yeah, I guess it's always external forces. I think that's
I don't even know how you would get them out of Canada.
Yeah,
transporting animals between USDA and FWC. Jesus, you don't have anywhere else you can release them in Canada?
Well, the government here has issued a call order, and because they're concerned about the birds, they feel they're a danger. So the government wants them put down. And these protesters and the farm owners are trying to stop that. That's where Dr. Oz comes in. He became involved and said, send them on down here to my farm in Florida. I'll take them.
I had never heard of Dr. Oz, and how many acres does he have?
I think it's something
I
like
don't
nine.
Know where he is
I looked it up. From what I found, it's about 900 acres, I believe. I'll have to confirm that.
And I don't know where he's at, though. That's up to him.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want it. I wouldn't want it near me.
Would other farmers?
Not a small number.
No, that's a lot. What would be? That's a huge undertaking to take care of.
Yeah, I don't even know how you would transfer that many ostriches. Is probably 20 or 30 trailer loads. That's not just a few animals you put in the trailer and ship them. That's 20 or 30 trailer loads.
So he has a lot of logistics to go through and regulations, right? He's looking at what federal, state, and local regulations.
I'm not involved with importing from other foreign countries, so I don't know.
Yeah. Wow. I guess you just recently.
I wish you guys good luck. I just don't want to be part of this.
Yeah, I understand. You I see your barn burned down recently. I'm sorry to hear that. I saw that online. Was that just recent?
It was last year.
I see. Well, do you need donations or anything at your facility down there to keep it running? How do you?
No, we're not taking donations. Actually, it's a self-funded LLC.
Okay. Well, my hat goes
We
off to you,
we
and
don't accept donations either.
and it sounds like you're doing good work and doing humane things for these. Especially, I'm sorry to hear about the like the monkeys and the other animals from the lab experiments, but I'm glad they finally found a nice home.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ron. I really appreciate your time today and appreciate you commenting. Thank you.
Greetings, brave mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay. When was the last time you heard somebody say, "We're not accepting donations"? Another breath of fresh air tonight. That just looks to me like a fantastic operation. And what a nice fella Ron was. So I thank him very much for speaking with us on the phone. Interesting timing tonight as we just kind of wrap things up. While all this talk about the ostriches, the COVID research, the bird flu is going on, I see tonight as well that RFK Jr. has announced that COVID vaccines have now been removed from the vaccination schedule, recommended vaccination schedule for children and pregnant moms. So big change there. And while that's going on, I also see that there are reports that COVID is still out there and getting at least a little bit of media attention. I was surprised to see this. I just stumbled on this tonight. 300 people in the U.S. are still dying from COVID every week. That's what this ABC headline said earlier this week. This was from 3 days ago, more than 5 years after the first cases of COVID-19 were detected in the United States. Hundreds of people are still dying every week. Last month, an average of about 350 people died each week from COVID, according to data from the CDC, Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And while high, the number of deaths is decreasing and is lower than the peak of 25,974 deaths recorded the week ending January 9th, 2021. as well as weekly deaths seen in previous spring months, CDC data shows. Just interesting. So many different views on this. And just like the ostriches, it's a story that charges emotions. But that story from Area 51, Animal Rescue Sanctuary, that warmed my heart. And I hope it warmed yours too tonight. And that will kind of wrap things up for us here on this 27th day of May, 2025, a historic day for Canada, a pivotal day for the world. I'll see you guys back here tomorrow night. Same orangutan time, same orangutan channel. Here's the Orange Orangutan Man, Maverick and the News Brothers, 7 p.m. Eastern, tomorrow night. See you then on the flip side.
Monkey see, monkey do. Vladimir Putin's making a fool out of you. Once a deal maker, now just a shouter. Used to shake hands, now it's all about power. You turn your back on your friends and your allies too. You betrayed the spirit of the red, white, and blue. Oh, orange orangutan man, swinging through the world with a heavy hand, tearing up treaties, slapping on tariffs, throwing tantrums like a billionaire sheriff. Dial it down, don't stop it, man, you beast, you critter. Orange orangutan man. Donald Trump 1.0 had a plan. Now Donald J. Trump 2.0's a wrecking man. Used to make deals, now you just sneer, ruling through fear, grinning ear to ear. Canada's not for sale, Greenland ain't yours. Gaza's not a playground, quit making wars. Bluffing and puffing with the wig on tight, acting like a boss but you lost the fight. The art of the deal, man, that ship sunk. Now it's all about rage and a nuclear funk. Orange orangutan man, swinging through the world with a heavy hand, tearing up treaties, slapping on tariffs, throwing tantrums like a billionaire sheriff. Dial it down, don't stop it, man, you beast, you critter. Orange orangutan man. You're fired. No, you're just bananas.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.